Game one upon us, first serve upon us, Elise Jones serving to Megan Dezant.
And we've got Brooke Mucketer on the left and Megan Dezant on the right.
DC on the board first in their debut this season.
1-0. Point. 2-0.
Rachel Rohrbacher successful on the left so far.
It's working.
And talking with Al Tylis before this match, I believe they bust in a couple local bus full of college kids.
That's a smart thing to do. That crowd, it's worth it. It's worth having those extra people in the stands cheering for your team, and it gets your team going.
They provided the bus and the fun.
Get it done.
And said, come on, kids, get out here. They love it.
That's not a bad plan.
So if you're hearing blowhorns, that's why.
It's getting better and better every season.
Hey, if I was a college kid, that's what I wanted to. Overhead from Brooke Buckner, former Michigan Wolverine standout in tennis.
We've already got a few lobs coming out. Just 6 points in, we've seen about 4 lobs.
2-4.
Well, Megan Dezant is used to playing the right without a right in
correct
TPA, so
she's got the reach on that side.
Yeah.
It's she's got that potential to move on that backhand side. She's very long, and that's the setup they need to do as much as possible.
Point. Four.
Crashing Megan Dezant again.
There it is. That's that Brooke Buckner drive, which is a play that's going to be utilized. She's used to doing with that right. And maybe that's what we're talking about. The team's players are used to playing both the right side. It's finding which players should be playing the left with this particular team. And it may be different when you've got one person versus the next. So maybe this is the changeup that they needed.
5-5. Kick 5. Side out, right 6.
Perfect third from Rachel Rohrbacher, but it seems the side switch for now is working for Columbus.
Absolutely. They want to keep it going as long as they can. If they can keep serving and making that play, that's what they want as early as they can.
Good pressure from Rohrbacher.
Well, that right there is the changeup. Elise returned it to Dezant to make sure that she was not going to come in and poach. So that's a smart player right there. Made that adjustment very, very quickly.
Mighty Mouse is what they call Elise Jones. Ooh, I don't know. That one was close.
Ooh, very much so. It's a nice long point. You also remember Elise Jones and Megan Dazan partnered together for quite some time. They know each other's game very well. They practice together a lot in Utah. So that, you've got to say, two players know each other very, very well are going to have to adjust their tactics quite a lot.
Well, you've played against Rachel Rohrabacher and Anna Bright, obviously. What would be your X's and O's strategy for Megan Dazan and Brooke after this point?
I mean, you can kind of see they're already trying to do it. They're playing behind Rachel Rohrabacher a lot. They're not giving Elise many returns to set her up, and they've got to basically keep that space busy. They've got to keep Rachel out of the middle, which is exactly what's happening right now. I mean, she's going to take up that space and take advantage of it as often as she can.
Well-placed game by Dazan to set up that sequence.
I mean, they had some great defense coming back because that's what Rachel wants. She wants to close up that middle. Dazan and Buckner, they've got to play that outside space. They've got to move behind her into that backhand space and hopefully open up Elise a little bit more to get attacked.
What a shot from Rohrabacher. It's not necessarily glamorous to do that, but it works. Rolls it in right to the backhand side.
And I think that's something we hear a lot is like, why does that two-handed backhand tend to be so effective for players is you're getting a lot more topspin on that, and you can roll it very, very quickly. It's a tough, tough shot for most players to do.
Oh, that ball was just long. I believe I saw it long as well on the call. Mentioned that tennis background, former University of South Carolina college tennis standout is Rachel Rohrabacher. Megan played for BYU back in the day, and Elise Jones has that volleyball background.
Yeah, she's the anomaly.
9-10.
And that's where they do have to be very cautious, though. They have to make sure that ball is bouncing behind her, not giving her too much aggressiveness where she can redirect and speed it up and Dazan. Brooks probably got to take her time a little bit more on those dinks and really try to get her off balance, not allow her to reach in and speed up those shots.
That's a good ball from Elise Jones, right down the line on Brooke Buckner. 1 point away from the end change, DC. Games of 25, win by 2, switch ends at 13.
That's just bad luck. I mean, it happens. There's not much you can do with that. She tried to get it around the post. That's kind of a bummer. It's a frustrating way to change ends.
Yeah.
I mean, some very, very good points. They're just got a little bit of a spread right now with Rohrabacher getting a little more aggressive, and they're speeding them up. They're speeding Brooke and Dazan. They need to slow down a little bit, make that ball bounce, and kind of get more into a rhythm. Right now, they're just going right into Rachel's rhythm, and that's not what they need.
Hard to keep it away from her, though, too, when she's so aggressive, right?
It's tough because Elise is so consistent, and Elise's lobs, though, because one thing I think either team, we saw it right at the beginning, we saw quite a couple lobs. They're very good at it, and if Elise is on fire with that lob, it's going to exhaust them. It's going to be a tricky thing to do. So, but that's what both teams that kind of need to consider getting back into, move them a little bit more, because right now they're getting to that line and they're just owning those shots.
13-9.
I am surprised we haven't seen a lot of poaching from Rohrabacher on the midcourt, though.
Rachel Rohrabacher pocketed a couple of gold medals in women's doubles with Anna Bright this last month, the busiest stretch of the PPA season. 4 tournaments in 4 weekends in April.
Wow.
A weapon of a backhand for Rachel Rohrabacher.
Well, and right now, if if I'm Robacher and Jones, I'm just happy that Robacher's getting so many balls. They've got to start moving that ball, play Elise a little bit more, because Rachel's getting fired up right now. And Elise is just going to build into that.
That cord will help Brooke Buckner that time. They'll get the break.
Yep. And that little pattern right there, it's a smart pattern. She's pulling Dazan out, and she tried to get Brooke to move over, but she didn't. So when she tried to play behind her, Brooke was ready to eat that up. That's the play that Brooke and Megan need to be doing.
11-15. Timeout, point 16.
And the DC Pickleball team, they've got one more match tonight, and they've got 2 tomorrow.
16-11.
The sliders are done after this. Just back for Megan Dazan, who looks frustrated.
I mean, that's kind of what we were talking about earlier. This chemistry is right now when they've made some errors, there's a 6-point spread. That's a big spread to happen in these matches. And Brooke and Megan need to start working together, and it doesn't really seem like that's what's happening. They seem to be on the same court, but I don't know if they're, that chemistry is quite there yet.
Timeout, point 12. (12-17).
The college kids are fired up. You can hear them on the sideline. A missed rip there for Brooke Buckner. There they are, got a shot at the crowd. DC Pickleball fans in the house.
Now is the time to do it. They're getting behind it, and that's got to be bugging Brooke and Megan just a little bit. You're getting errors, but nothing's more frustrating when you're making errors and people are cheering.
Yes.
That is the tough time.
Yeah, they're even blowing the horn before the sliders hit it sometimes. Just wide for Robacher.
And that's a shot Robacher has very often. She's gone for it quite a few times, and it works. When it's working quite a bit. And mind you, Buckner and Dazan have the right idea. They're trying to make the play that was working earlier. It was Buckner driving and Dazan coming across and poaching, and they're trying it, but again, it's not working just because they're either missing the drive or they're missing the poach. And now's the time they just have to start slowing down and elongating a little bit, because nothing's working when they're trying to overpower Jones and Robacher.
What does that mean to slow down and elongate? Just dink a little bit more until you get the shot that you want, or what's your thought process there?
It's earlier on they were speeding at the ball and it was working, but right now it's just feeding into Elise and Robacher. When they were building the point a little bit more, making the ball bounce behind Robacher, playing it out, that was setting them up a lot better. It was forcing some errors out of Robacher as well. Whereas right now, they're letting Robacher dictate the points. They're allowing the speed ups, she's taking her dinks in the air, she's spreading, redirecting a forehand and a backhand. There's nothing she's not attacking.
Little length for the sliders.
There it is. They got the net cord. Let's see if they can utilize that a little bit.
16-20.
That's what I'm talking about right there. She's got to force those points a little bit more, make those balls bounce. And I got to say, you could hear those DC fans in the background. Put it away, do that. And that's tough to play up against for all 4 of those players when you've got them cheering like that.
Just long for Robacher there, and the sliders will take the break, and just like that, they're back within 2. We will take a quick break as well. Could the Columbus Sliders come back? They need it. We'll be right back. Columbus Sliders on a bit of a run here off a couple of misses from the DC Pickleball team, who seemed well in control all the way through game one.
Time in.
When I guess that's a smart move from DC, taking a timeout. As soon as there was a little bit of a string of errors, they immediately took that timeout, whereas Columbus has not taken a timeout this entire game.
Yeah, that is interesting, isn't it?
19-20. Point.
And there's kind of another pressure error from Robacher just by forcing that ball to bounce behind her. And that's what DeZon and Buckner need to keep doing. Once that first error comes, the second one comes pretty quick after.
Just back. What a battle. I'm just laughing at the, the banter on the sideline. From the fans, the new DC Pickleball fans, by the way.
DC, they're
Just found them at
diehards.
college, and now they're diehards.
Make it happen.
They better come to DC is all I'm saying next month. Back for Rohrabacher.
I mean, Buckner was just sitting on that. She had her paddle wound up, ready for her to attack that ball before Rachel even thought about hitting it.
21-21.
Big rip from Buckner, and Columbus takes.
There we go, some fire from Buckner right there. Yeah. That's what I like. She's getting motivated.
Take a lead.
22-21.
They need this confidence boost.
Absolutely.
Right out, point 22.
High game continues.
It's almost trying to just listen to them more than anything, what they're going to come up with on every shot.
22-22.
The stands.
The stands.
The college kids.
Yeah. Then you wonder, have they seen pickleball before? Is this new?
No.
And
Oh, just back, and Columbus back on top by one.
there you go, but they're staying smart. They're doing what they started to do, building that point again a little longer, making that ball bounce a little bit,
23-22.
and attacking the balls that are there instead of trying to force it out of nothing.
Point.
Well played by Megan DeZon, game point, Sliders.
I mean, look at that. That's a big change up there. I mean, right here, these last 5 points, that's great chemistry from DeZon and Buckner.
24-22.
Well, they seem well out of it midway through this one. And that's the beauty of rally scoring, folks. Megan
There we
DeZon
go.
drives it and takes the game, 25-22.
Yeah, I think that was that first drive she did. She'd been dropping the rest of them. It's a great job. I'm so excited to see this team keep going and going now.
Well, men's doubles coming up next. James Ignatowicz will helm his team for DC to take on Riley Newman and Connor Garnett. James Ignatowicz, partner, you asked? Dekel Bar. This is an interesting matchup for many reasons. Sarah will tell us why next. All day, I was like, oh, I'll just try my phone in the truck. Columbus Sliders with a one-game edge on the DC Pickleball team, and
50 seconds, let's play.
Riley Newman taking the stage next with Connor Garnett. Columbus Sliders are 0-3 so far in the tournament in terms of matches. They are still looking to grab some standing points, and this would be a massive advantage to go up 2-0 on James Ignatowicz
Absolutely.
and his team. But what do you think about these two partnerships? Let's start with James Ignatowicz and DUPR. That's a unique partnership we don't always see.
I mean, absolutely. I'm really curious, honestly. I'm excited to see just the dynamics between them. It looks like Ignatowicz is playing the right, and Deckel is playing the left. I mean, that could go either way. I really want to see who's taking that middle. That's what I want to see. I want to see who's going to, take that space up, or if there might be some clashing of paddles. But, James is such a good team player, too. So, he thrives in this environment. So, I mean, I've seen it. His first MLP he won. It's fantastic.
Yeah. James Ignatowicz, an MLP champ, as you mentioned, back in Newport in 2022.
I mean, I was on the sidelines with that team, and he just is such a good teammate, and so nervous all the time, though. And he was, quiet on the sidelines, but he's really come into himself every event.
Maybe that's why he bounces so much. Touch from DUPR. What about the results from Deckel lately? Making it to the final in men's doubles and in mixed as well.
He definitely has that skill, and it looks like I was wrong. James is playing the left, and Deckel is the right. Deckel's reach and extension, and I still think he's just got one of the biggest serves out there. It's so massive. He puts so much pressure on the ball. So deceptive, and he's really put the hard work into, and he's getting those results, which is fantastic for him.
Massive point for DC.
I mean, Garnett just teeing off, and Ignatowicz just standing there. No big deal. I've got it back. And
2-1.
And the old serve is back for DUPR. I'll explain in a moment. Big put away, but there's that beefy serve you mentioned, and an MLP, it's not the same rules as PPA. So the distinction there, according to Courtney Johnson, the head of competition, you can contact the ball from anywhere on your body. It doesn't have to be from below your hip. Ignatowicz with a tough serve, too.
Deckel's height has always made that high contact point. Garnett was almost on his heels, legs up after that serve.
4-1.
So that's going to be tricky. This format just goes right into what Deckel wants.
Right out, point 2.
Connor Garnett has been tweaking with his serve. He's been making a couple of errors today. That's been something to keep a lookout for.
Something they definitely want to be cautious about. He's a fantastic server and he gets a lot out of it, but when you're starting to miss too many, especially with the MLP format, you got to weigh out your percentages.
5-2. Right out, point 3. Three, 5.
Jammed up by DUPR is Riley Newman. Do you think there's any rust for Riley Newman at just not having played at match speed for a little while?
I was just thinking that. I mean, he plays a lot, he practices a lot, but not having those tournaments, especially when you say we have 4 back-to-back events with PPA and MLP, and sitting out that, you've got these other players who are ready to go, and Newman is a little bit off the bench, so that can change some things, and nothing beats that tournament practice when you're working on that hand speed. But he's also, I think, going to adjust very, very quickly.
DUPR owning the kitchen in every way right now. These two are looking dangerous.
I mean, they're at that line and they're solid. Their feet are not moving at all. It doesn't matter what Garnett and Newman are bringing at them. They're still just ready for it and have no problems getting it back. And you can see both of them are just really utilizing their size with this service roll.
Ooh. Great defense from Garnett, but DUPR was there for the second round of defense.
That's great coverage. And Ignatovich, a great job staying out. He almost lost his balance, but he made that shot. And that just goes to show his length is incredible.
Drive and crash right on cue for Ignatovich and DUPR.
And that's kind of what we're seeing at DUPR lately. He's a little more fired up. He's getting a little more aggressive on shots. And I think that's really attributed to a lot of his success lately.
He's fully healthy, too, which helps.
Oh, yeah.
Nursing an injury or two.
Right out, point
Takes some time. Sliders get a break. They need to create their own here on Connor Garnett's serve.
right out, point 10.
And you see Garnett wants to make something out of this. He wants to try to kind of stop the bleeding, but he's kind of missed 2 low attacks already.
Point.
DC 2 points away from the end change.
11-6.
That is such quick movement from James Ignatovich from feet to paddle.
I mean, his hands are so fast. He's ready for Garnett to speed up any type of shot. And he thrives in this. He works in this mentality all the time. He wants that energy. He plays so well with it. And look at that serve from DUPR that just gets him the changeover.
13-6 dominant lead for DC, trailing a game to the Sliders, and James Ignatovich and DUPR are a well-oiled machine at this point. We'll be right back. Sliders in some trouble against DUPR and James Ignatovich, and we do not see Ignatovich and DUPR playing together often, but this combination seems to be a little deadly.
It's not terrible.
It's not bad.
You know, at the end of the day, I mean, DUPR's been a right-sided player for a very long time. He plays the left side with a lot of teams, but he plays so well in men's doubles on that side because he's so long. You know, both of them are so long, they can cover so much of the court without even moving at all.
Nobody hits something harder than James Ignatovich.
We have Newman on the right now instead of Garnett on the right, and it's got to be a couple reasons for that because Garnett was very much struggling with DUPR serve. I'd say that's probably the biggest one. I mean, and Newman can be aggressive on either side, but that's a changeup that they had to make, I think, with the pressure that got put on that serve.
8-14.
Deep for Garnett. And there's just so much power to be managed on the side of the Sliders coming from DUPR and James Ignatovich. Unrelenting. the Tui Nation showing
Right out,
up.
point
There you go.
nine.
And he's using that two-hander, and that's great because Garnett, he can hit quite a lot out of that ball too. He's got some great power on the ball. His drives are really good. If he can kind of dial that in a little bit, then they can get it somewhere, maybe close in the gap a little bit.
Point.
Only 3 teams remain unbeaten right now at the premier
10-15.
level. The New Jersey 5, St. Louis Shock, and Dallas Flash.
Ooh.
Right out, point 16. $16-10.
I mean, you can see that even with Newman returning that serve, it's barely, that ball is not coming back with much. And so they're able to take that third and drive it so easily. It's that advantage is huge with having both those players on that side.
Tequila is just everywhere right now. My goodness.
Well, that just goes to show you, he's trusting James is going to set him up, and he's just standing there waiting for the ball to come to him, and he was all over it.
These returns are so short because of those serves. Little happy foot.
A little bit. He likes to do that. Looking at both these guys, both of them throughout every point are so solid at the line. They're barely moving their feet. They cover so much ground. The only reason James is moving his feet is because he has that little hop that he likes to do. He doesn't really need to do it, but
a million little ones.
Yeah, they're tiny.
That's where his nervous energy goes, to the feet.
He's got to put it somewhere.
12-18.
Newman's putting so much pressure on that. He wants to throw himself in the point and kind of take over. He did a good job, but let's be real, he can't do it all on its own. And Garnett's kind of back there seeing like, what do? I just got to keep the ball back in play. Gosh, it's a great defense from James and Deckel.
Right out, point 13.
Clean feet for Riley Newman, and he'll take the overhead and point with him.
So at least they're getting somewhere with the side change.
13-19.
6-point hole to climb out of. Why can't they gain any advantage of the kitchen right now, Garnett and Newman? Is it the drops aren't working, they're not getting the ball on the ground? Is it that
20-13.
And you just got Newman wanting to kind of insert himself more, and the reality is if they're letting Garnett drive some of those, it's going to set up Newman a little bit better.
14-20.
But he wants to get involved, and he wants to try to do something to try to stop the bleeding. I mean, that worked out because that ball floated so much, but at least it was kind of baiting a little bit.
15-20.
Deckel bar, pickpockets Riley Newman down the line. Newman can't find any answers right now.
I mean, what I really love, though, is Barr, you hear him, saying, you. I love when he starts communicating like that. He was just waiting for that ball that was his to do something with.
Wow, Tui angle for Connor Garnett. Beautiful shot.
16-21. Point. Seventeen, 21. Side out, point 22.
And there's a missed serve from Garnett, which is kind of what we talked about. That's the first one we've seen, at least in this match. Not a great time to do that, though.
22-17.
I'm told it's his 6th of the day.
Side out, point 18. Eighteen, 22.
Newman finally finds the opening.
I mean, what a point. Offense to defense the whole time. Speed ups on both sides. Just great coverage. And I think Newman is going to be the one that thrives the longer the point is. That's the benefit there. He knows if he can keep in that point, it's gonna usually work out for him in the percentages.
Well, that was just it, though. It didn't feel like they were ever able to get into a point.
Yes.
Which, what do you attribute that to with the way Deckelbar and
how can you?
Which are, yeah.
It's especially when you when they have these new height things too. I mean, it's incredible. I mean, I've been on the other side of Deckel's serve, and you can't do anything with it.
Yeah.
It's just huge. So, I mean, they're going to take every advantage of that, and it's working for them in every sense of the way. But Newman and Garnett at least had a little bit of an answer. They're not getting as much on the defense with Newman returning, whereas Garnett was really, really struggling with that, and that made a big difference in the points.
The pace of the spin that's coming at you with Deckel's serve that's more challenging, or how would you describe it for somebody that's never seen it live before?
I think the pace is from Deckel. There's absolutely a ton of spin on it, but just the pace that he can put behind it is unlike what many can do. It's incredible.
Big run for Columbus. Pulled within 3 after trailing as big as 6. Oh, no, that's deflating.
Jeez. And I'm all for take some risks on your serve. Garnett's got a huge serve. He uses it very well in singles.
23-19.
But when this many points are happening at this time in the match, when you really need to close it out, maybe be a little bit more consistency over aggressiveness.
Beautiful ball by Riley Newman, pinching the middle, going right at the feet of Ignatowicz.
And it's soon, you see Newman, he's right in the middle of the court. He's putting so much pressure on that middle. And, you know, Ignatowicz and Barr are kind of playing into it a little bit. They really do need to play behind Riley a little bit more than they are currently. And that's kind of what I'm talking about. It's getting Garnett in a groove because they're isolating him so much. So they know the ball's coming to him. And it's making that court so small with Riley standing right there. They've got to utilize the court. They've got to get them out of rhythm a little bit more because Garnett isn't missing right now.
Garnett pulls the trigger from down low, maybe on a ball that wasn't quite there.
You know, and it worked the last point, but he changed his target. And so, you know, Deckel was kind of sitting there waiting for it. Ignatowicz was also there. It's just, it was almost kind of like he didn't know what else to do. It wasn't working anymore, so let's just pull the trigger. But he's got more options than that.
Right out, point 22.
Proper response, but the serve continues to be a struggle for Garnett, but Riley Newman will take it on the even.
And the match is getting closer. Now we're at a 2-point game, which is very different.
DC takes it on the miss.
There you go. And I think that's what we're talking about. They move the ball around. That's what they got to do to close out that match. It's incredible.
25-22, and the series is now tied 1 game apiece. We very well might have a dream breaker in store. We'll see how this mixed doubles matchup unfolds. We'll be right back. Time now for some mixed doubles action, and we reminded you about the coin toss ahead of the match beginning. DC won the toss, remember, so that means they got to react to the mixed doubles pairing that Columbus put out. And Riley Newman teaming up with Brooke Buckner for this mixed doubles game. And last match against Arizona, Riley teamed up with Megan, so a little switcheroo there. It's our first time we're seeing DC, so we'll see what partnership they go with. And what do you think about the switch, Riley and Brooke teaming up instead of Riley and Megan?
You know, I think Brooke can probably be steady next to Riley, maybe a little bit more than Dazan, but also what we have is Garnett is in more local to Megan, so they probably are able to practice more than, let's say, Megan and Riley. So I think that's a benefit there, is they know each other a little bit better, more than Megan and Riley do.
Side out, point 1. 1-0.
And that's a lot I'm talking about from Elise Jones. When she starts utilizing that, that's going to put most players on defense. And when she uses it in a mix, it's just such a fantastic have.
Side out, point 2. Two, 1. Side out, point 2.
That comes out of 2-2.
Newman with the finish.
And I think that's what Brooke is going to expect to do. She's moving out of the way of Newman. She's expecting that to happen, and I think she's kind of used to. I think she's smaller. She's got less reach than Megan does. So I think that might be helpful to have Riley have a little bit more space in that zone, because he's going to want to cover a lot of court and mix. He's going to want to take as many as Brooke's balls as he can and take up a lot of space.
Sneaky find from Brooke Buckner down the line, threaded the needle. That's got to be a challenge, though, for the ladies playing with Riley, knowing when sometimes he oversteps where he takes everything, and then other times, sometimes backs out of it. That's got to be a tougher balance to strike.
I think it's a trickier thing. I was just talking to one of the team owners a little bit earlier, and we were discussing how some players finding that mixed mentality is tricky, and some players don't know that line, how far is too far, and it can take longer to develop over like a men's doubles skill. And it's tricky. Each player is very, very different in how comfortable they feel about being aggressive as well. And I mean, I've seen Elise. I've recently played Elise, and her partner knocked her on the ground. and so, you know, she recovers well from that. So it's you know, sometimes it's roll with the punches, and then other times you want them to come over and they're not.
Right.
It's a battle on both sides.
Side out, point 4.
Why do you think it made sense for DC to go with this matchup against Columbus?
4-5.
You can answer after the serve if you want.
You know, that serve is I think they want Deckel against Newman. I think that's a better lineup in mixed. You've got Elise is going to be consistent across the board, but I think they are going to feel really strong with Deckel's serve, putting a lot of pressure on both players. And, you know, Rachel and James are a solid team. They practice together a little bit more, which I think that chemistry will go well against Garnett and Dazan.
What a play by Deckel Bar, start to finish. He's been playing on the PPA side with Tina Pisnik, and they have been unstoppable on them.
And I think that's what Deckel needs next to him, is just someone who's consistent and is going to keep that ball back as often as possible, but also be ready to counter. So it kind of lets Deckel play a little more freely, which he's super consistent, but when he's being a little more aggressive, that's doing the job.
Buckner strikes the hip of Deckel Bar.
Timeout, DC, 8-5.
That's a pretty early timeout.
And you only get one.
That's kind of like what we were saying earlier, when to take a timeout, who's willing to. DC's been much more willing to do timeouts as soon as a pattern starts to develop at all, of which a lot of teams like to do that. As soon as there's some negative impact, they want to tackle it as quickly as possible rather than saving it till the end. So again, that comes into a lot of the strategy of what we do and how we make those choices.
When you mentioned the consistency of dinking on the female part of the mixed doubles partnership, it seems like that would be an easy role to just make dinks.
Yeah.
Make dinks, make dinks. Keep it out of danger. But what's the most challenging part about being consistent in that way, from your perspective, who's been in this position?
Well, you know, I think one thing that keeps getting more is because of the technology, the paddles, the dinks are more aggressive than they've ever been. And so you're adding that extra spin to it. And when you've got that smaller space, 'cause especially in mixed, it's because, you know, Deckel can stand right in the middle and he can still Ernie on the left side of the court from that position he's in right now. So that does put a lot of pressure, because our targets are a little bit smaller when you're doing that, with the added pressure of more spin, more pace, all of that coming together.
Miscommunication in the middle there.
Yeah, that right there is going maybe too far. There's no reason that Deckel needed to take that. Elise was just fine, and so I think that's what you're talking about earlier, where, you know, maybe just let it go once.
Oh,
I mean, that's an incredible get.
Finally got it, but dropped it in.
But I think that right there, just kind of what I was saying too, just with the paddle technology, you're seeing like when we're playing defense, that now ball has a little more spin than it did
11-5.
a year or two ago too. So the riskiness of that is same thing. It's keeping balls in defense a lot lower and a lot more aggressive.
Both partners sped it up to eat it up. Riley Newman finished it. Gutsy play on Deco Bar straight ahead.
And that's it. They weren't successful early on, but it has been working. Handcuffing him a little bit.
There's another lock from Jones. It's long.
Timeout, change in, 13-5.
And right there, that's something, Deco wasn't playing as tight to the middle, giving Elise a little bit more room because they were moving the ball a little bit more as well, which is what they need to do. That'll make Brooks' targets much bigger.
Sliders get to 13 first, and we're gonna take a quick timeout too on the end change.
Oh no! Ah.
15 seconds, requisition. Requisition. Time in. 13-5.
And we are back on championship court with the lead of the Sliders, 13-5 on the changeover.
Timeout, point 6.
Oh, they've got the right setup. I like the energy that they've got, but Elise and Deco hung in well and got the ball back, which is something they need. They need to start off this side with some couple points, even the spread out a little bit.
Ooh. That'll do it.
And the crowd is starting again. The DC's got a couple more points.
7-13.
They were getting quiet. The college kids were getting quiet for a minute.
Kids, yeah, they were. They were speechless the first time in the match.
Right out, point 14. Seven.
Deco taking up that whole court. And Elise was like, go for it. Take it. I want you to. I'm cheering you on from the side.
8-14. Side out, point 15. Eight. Point.
That's such a good ball from Riley Newman. Going off on his side.
Jamming Elise as she's trying to recover back on that spot. I mean, he's looking a lot more confident, even from the last match. He's a little looser. He is a little more relaxed.
That's pretty from
Right
Deckel
there,
Bar.
look where Deckel came from to jump across and take an Ernie on that. I mean, that right there is the pressure of size
9-15.
and why that puts so much pressure in that dink rally as well, because he can take any of those balls and Ernie them, and you just don't know.
Right out, point 17.
I mean, it's a little bit high of a ball than what maybe Elise normally does. She kind of knew it as soon as she hit it.
Brooke and Riley played together against the New York Hustlers. CJ Klinger and Leah Jansen got a win
79.
there, 27-25. In the only match that Columbus got a standing point in.
Well, and
Lost in
this
a
lineup is
dragbreaker.
pretty important for them.
Yeah.
Just like we were talking about earlier, that morale, getting that team chemistry going.
But Buckner was loaded up on the backhand side of the gift from Deckel Bar. When you're in the cross-court dinking sequence like Jones and Buckner, when do you decide when to mix that up and go straight ahead to the guy?
I think you're looking at a couple different reasons. Either you're a little bit kind of off balance, you're getting pulled out, and it gives you a little more time. You want to try to get it to go to your partner. Sometimes it's just the pattern. You're trying to pull them over a little bit. Once you feel comfortable going behind, just like that, that's going to open up that space a little bit more for them to either go back at Buckner or that open space against, making Riley cover more court.
Right out, point 10.
Not the spot on Deckel Bar.
And that right there, that's the movement, the smart shots, because Elise was not really being successful playing behind Riley
10,
too much.
18.
But that is what they need to do. That's going to make their court much, much bigger.
Right out, point 19. (19-10). Right out, point 11.
Again, it's elongating that point. Earlier on, like we were talking about in men's, Deckel was being super aggressive, but he plays this game well too, and that's what they need to do. They need to elongate those
11-19.
points. They need to make more balls bounce and make the court bigger. Keep Newman honest.
Point. Right out, point.
Brooks like, hey,
20.
I set that one up. I wanted to finish that shot.
20-11.
I mean, if I'm on the sidelines of DC right now, I am telling all those college kids, let's get my team energized, because you could see it. You could see it on the court,
21-11.
and as obnoxious as it can be at wrong times, nothing is worse than all of a sudden them being quiet because it means you're not doing well, and then that gets in your head as a player as well.
Listen, kids, we bought you the beer. Now you need to earn it.
12-21. Point.
Good ball from Elise Jones.
Timeout, Columbus. 13-21.
Timeout called early this time by Columbus. Whether you do get a timeout, might as well use it, right?
Yeah, I mean, they're
4 points away.
Plenty of room, essentially, but that Elise and Declan are getting a little bit more dialed in, so they might as well stop that damage, not let them get too much closer. Nothing is worse when you have a bigger lead, and suddenly that lead of 7 gets down to 2 or 3.
Sliders, the closing stretch here. Waiting in the wings for the next mixed doubles matchup is James Ignatowicz and Rachel Rohrabacher, who will team up against Connor Garnett and Megan Dazan.
And I mean, most definitely, James and Rachel, I feel like, are very much favored in that match. So they figure, too, at least they're going to get to a dream breaker as that goal. But ideally, if Elise and Declan can step it up a little bit and at least kind of shrink that lead a little bit, that's going to help their mental state in that next matchup.
Side out, point 22.
And that's been rock solid in this one.
I mean, Brooke's been redirecting that ball at Declan all day. She's been waiting for it every single point.
Point.
It's not a common miss from Elise. That's one person you're not going to see miss that once in a match very often.
Side out, point 14.
You know, at least right there, that just goes to show you how much court coverage she has with how far Declan is coming. She's still able to read that ball and cover up that space. Declan was ready for that one. And now that crowd is, the DC is starting to get loud again.
23. Side out, point 24.
And Declan is trying something. He's trying to get more aggressive on those drives, which was working in men's.
24-15.
Game point for Columbus. 24-15. Missed early for the finish. Game point number 2 for Columbus. No longer have to win on your serve.
Side out, point 25.
And they will close it out on that strike from DUPR, and the Sliders back up a game on DC. I think I smell a dream breaker.
I think a dream breaker is in our future.
We're going to step aside for just a moment. Our mixed doubles game number 2 on the other side of the break. Second mixed doubles game in this matchup upon us now. The Columbus Sliders up on the DC Pickleball team. DC making their season debut here in Atlanta this Saturday afternoon. 5 p.m. local time. Michelle McMahon, Sarah Ansbury in the booth. And Riley Newman and Brooke Buckner were sharp as they needed to be.
I mean, they played fantastic. They played like a solid team. I feel like they just kind of went out and felt like we have to do our job and let's do it. I don't think there was a lot of motion there. It was kind of just clean cut, which is what Columbus really needed.
So now we move on to this combination. James Ignatowicz teaming up with Rachel Rohrabacher, the women's doubles partner of Anna Bright on the PPA Tour, and Megan Dezana and Connor Garnett teaming up for this one. What do you see here, X's and O's wise on both sides?
You know, I really see Rachel and James being aggressive and coming out strong, and I'd like to see if Garnett is able to kind of hold his own at that line and that mix and stay aggressive on that. But I feel like Rachel and James kind of edge this out here. They both thrive so much in this environment. Garnett's been struggling with the serve today. I don't think they've won a men's match yet. So the confidence has got to be a little low right now on that side of the court.
Oh, wow, that one.
Got excited for that one.
Yeah. This is the last team match of the tournament for Columbus, first team match for DC. Columbus still looking for their first team win. They did get a point off a Dreambreaker loss to New York on Thursday, but this would be huge.
Point.
And I think that you could see the energy on that court. So James and Rachel, they both kind of make this sitter kind of error, but they're both kind of amped up and excited. So that's going to happen. When you're going for the right shots, you're going to miss the right shots as well.
Point.
And that's what Garnett's got to do. He's got to be kind of big in that middle and take that ball and stay aggressive. Make that space smaller.
Just gets his body out of the way and throws his paddle on it.
My
goodness, James Ignatowicz.
And it's got a foot fault. It's the second foot fault in this this lineup.
The pace of that ball going off his paddle, though. Dezan didn't even see it go past her.
Oh, he
didn't even know he was in.
He didn't notice it. He was all ready. But yeah, I mean, because they're down 0-4, 0-5. I'm sorry, but it's not worrisome because the shots they've missed, it's foot faults, some errors on high shots. So they're just a little amped up early, and they're going to make some errors, but they're going to turn it around in no time.
Here's the challenge.
Yep, left foot.
Yeah. Just barely, even if it didn't hit it on the slide, it definitely touched here.
Yes,
right
correct.
I actually think it was off the ground when he was maneuvering it to the left, or to the right, rather.
Yes. I think where James kind of gets his more happy feet on there. And I think, you know, something that happens a lot when they're not turning their toes is a foot fault happens a lot.
Call stands, and DC loses one of their 3 challenges. You get 3 free challenges per match. So you can use them during any game you want. They still have 2 left to use. Then you get another freebie in the Dreambreaker.
5-0. Side out, point 1.
On the board. Ignatowicz, just 24 years old. Turned 24 last week, actually. Happy belated birthday, James Ignatowicz. Rachel Rohrabacher turns 27 in July. Former SEC champ in tennis.
Point.
A little anticlimactic, but it's got him a point.
2-5.
What a play from Connor Garnett, low from his shin, still found it.
And that's kind of what we were talking about in the previous match, is how long should we stay in that cross-court rally? And I think Rachel's just staying in that cross-court a little too long. It's allowing Garnett to insert himself, and using, again, that space to reset down line is probably going to be more beneficial. One thing we do see a lot, especially when you have a heavy tennis background, is that desire to go cross-court all the time.
Yes.
It's harder for some players to be able to transition it from a cross-court to a down the line. It's a contact point issue kind of thing. So if you're late at all, that ball's going to pop up. It's a struggle. So it's going to be much more comfortable to just stay in that cross-court.
Side out, point 7.
Huge serve from Ignatowicz just a moment ago, by the way. That I don't know whose serve I'd rather match up against, Steckles or James.
And that's the play, just like what James did. He's got to play that space into Garnett's backhand, pull him off that middle.
5-7. Side out, point 8.
And again, kind of right there is an example of if Rachel stays in that cross court maybe too much, it's just going to set up Megan to redirect at James.
Side out, point 6.
So springy, James Ignatowicz.
It's constant, that's for sure. He hits his steps.
Side out, point 9. Nine, 6. Side out, point
There's another
7.
missed serve from Garnett. I'm just, it's hurting me, I think. It's, I'm the first one to say go for it on your serves, especially in this environment, but there's a point where you're losing too many points off it, and there James is doing it as well. But again, it's some people also taking advantage of the height that you can do with the service rules. So it is a much more aggressive serve than the normal rules where we can barely move our hands, can't move our hands.
Point.
So that the energy, you got the energy works really well for them, or it works really bad for them. It's, you know, because once you do start missing balls, it can spiral a little bit from there. And you know, you kind of try. I always say, like, we try to hit our way through problems, and that is not always the answer. It's something as tennis players we naturally do, but sometimes in pickleball, it fights against us quite a bit.
Well, James Ignatowicz has a new newsletter out where he teaches a point of the game every week. It's really interesting. If you haven't had a chance to look at it, I suggest that you do so. But he talks about that serve risk to reward ratio. He's obviously more on the side of you should miss at least one serve every game that you play in pickleball. But of course, there's a balance there, right? And he's more consistent in that category than he is not.
Yes, and that's I mean, I say that's kind of what I say. One serve is your gimme. Like that's the expectant. If you're not missing it ever, then you're not taking those risks. And when you've got when you're able to get so much out of it because of size or the paddle and all that, then it's absolutely worth it in a lot of ways, like we saw with Deckel. But Deckel also did not miss one, I don't think, that whole time, that first men's match.
Side out, point 8.
He said if you're not missing 1 out of 10 serves, you aren't
8-11.
taking enough risk, according to James Ignatowicz.
Side out, point
Well,
12.
yeah, I would say, you know, I think that's good. I think you said
Hot
it,
take.
where the consistency is. I think if
Right.
you know,
Well,
for
hey, if you
players
that
at this caliber, it makes sense. And then I think with a lot of my rec players are like, well, you guys miss them. And but it's always where, you know, players always think they don't need to learn how to hit a ball. They just need to know where to hit a ball, which is usually the opposite. So
That's funny. Columbus on top 13-8, looking to get their first match win of the tournament. They could close it out on the other side of this short commercial break. Don't go anywhere. James Ignatowicz and Richard Warbacher, they have a lot of fight in them. We'll be right back.
that must have been the other breeders he was talking to. I'll send it to you. Cape Coral, Florida. I'll send it to you. Yeah, so it's, like, I knew she was talking to a breeder in Atlanta, but she must have switched it. So. It was like her dream. So sweet, yeah.
Columbus Sliders looking to close this match out in 3 games out of 4, and the Orlando Squeeze and St. Louis Shock
Time in.
will take the stage
13-8.
next. We have not seen the Orlando Squeeze in action yet. The St. Louis Shock remain unbeaten, one of 3 teams to have not lost a match yet.
Point. $14-8.
You know, this may not work out kind of what we anticipated. I think, you know, when you're looking at a lineup, Rachel and James kind of think, well, we should win this match, and at a bare minimum, it takes us to a dream breaker. But, you know, right now, it's a 15-8 lead, and kind of things like that just kind of keep happening. You can kind of see it in the body language now on the other side of the court, that, you know, something's got to change.
Yeah, I think you're right about that.
And, you know, Garnett and Dazan, they're just playing steady. They're kind of rolling with the punches, and a lot of the errors are just being made on the other side of the court.
Put away for Warbacher. And to me, on Columbus's side, these two seem to have better synergy in mixed than
9-16.
maybe Megan and Riley, and vice versa, Brooke and Riley together.
I think so, yeah.
Those are the things you learn.
Yes,
as your team
and
comes
sometimes
together.
it's match to match. It's, you know, we've had matches where we're practicing 10 minutes before and trying to decide on a lineup, and you know, sometimes it's like you make last minute changes and you just see what sticks.
17-9. Side out, point 10. $10-17.
I mean, Garnett looks a lot more comfortable here in this mix than he did in the men's match.
Connor
Side out,
Garnett
point 18.
with a drop volley. Feathery touch.
And that's an 8-point lead right now, which is,
18-10.
again, doesn't mean anything. But I don't think this is where we expected the match to be.
Side out, point 11.
Okay. And I do love Megan's dinks. She's got great control down the line or cross court. You see there that
11,
movement there.
18.
Just an error. That's not something she's going to miss a lot, but utilizing her on that side is hugely beneficial to set up Garnett. And I think that's a great ball that Megan's putting into Rachel's left hip, which is super important. It's pulling her off the line a little bit, pulling her off balance. And that kind of goes there, I think, is showing you how well Megan Dazon can really construct a point.
Side out, point 12.
That's another one.
12-19. Side out, point 20.
Off the hook. Miss for James Ignatowicz. Columbus 5 points away from taking the match.
20-12. Side out, point 13.
And I think that kind of just goes to show you that it's not super exciting. They're not being blown out of the water. They're not like Garnett and Dazon are kind of just playing steady overall. They've got some errors, but Rachel and James are just, the errors are a little bit higher.
Point.
Connor says, I will give you something to say about that.
I guess so, yeah. So I would,
14-20.
never mind.
Hold that thought.
Point.
Well, and that kind of goes into what we were speaking about earlier with a mix, knowing how far is too far, because essentially Garnett and Dazon, they have a lead, and so now you're seeing Garnett take a few more risks. He's taking up a little bit more space, but that's also raised the errors. So now there's a timeout, which I think it's a smart time, 2015. Do not let that gap get any bigger. Maybe calm down a little bit from Garnett, because he was very consistent for a minute, and then we just had about 2 to 3 errors in a row.
I mean, you don't want to let the moment get too big for you either, right? When your team desperately needs a win, you're on your way out of the tournament. This is your last match left. It's in the closing stretch. It's your chance to take it. Sometimes that can get to you mentally, as you can speak to.
It works really well, or it works really bad. I mean, and sometimes it's match to match, and sometimes player to player. It's you know, we talk about it all the time with players of all levels. How do you close a match when you're up? It's one of the most difficult things to do already, not let alone put the entire match of your entire team on your back, not just your individual match. And you know, I always tell my players, the most important thing to do when you're trying to close a match is do what's been working the entire match already. Don't try to change the plan unless you know it's going to work.
Oh, sneak attack. James Ignatowicz narrows the gap to 4 points.
16-20.
Oh boy. Yeah, buried it.
And that's the second ball that, like, I think Megan could have gone down the line to James instead of, she's in defense and going back cross court. That's just going to allow him to get more involved.
Another point for DC.
There we go. And that's kind of what we're talking about. It's once they get fired up, anything can happen. And so that the energy is definitely on the side right now of Rachel and James. But then the same issue. And we get excited, those errors come. And so, I mean, you kind of asked me like earlier what strategy-wise, like one of the biggest things we did was make Rachel hit more balls. Yeah. It's get her to hit the errors. The longer the point was, the more likely the errors were to come.
Wow, there's a good crash from Connor Garnett, setting himself up. They're 3 points away. Felt like they were almost going to let this one slip away, and these couple of points have been crucial.
Again, let's play steady. Let's see if we can just make them play another ball. Look at that. Which, it's been a game of errors for sure. And all honesty, I was sure when that ball, that serve was landing, that it was going out. And it kind of goes, you know, to make you think is Garnett's not getting a huge advantage from his serve by going and risking more. So at least him dialing it a little bit more is going to be reasonable to at least have a chance to get on the board.
Side out, point 24.
Game and match points for the Columbus Sliders off another miss from DC.
There it is.
24-19.
Columbus gets their first win of the tournament.
Look at that.
What a performance.
Great
for Megan
consistent
Deshan
play.
and Connor Garnett.
Just that last point, just what I'm talking about. Megan moved the ball a little bit more. That puts more pressure. And again, it's a match of errors essentially, but Garnett and Deshan played steady, which is all they needed to do to get through that, which this team needed it. This team wanted to finish on a high today rather than finish on another low.
And they needed it in regulation too, because that extra point in the standings will definitely matter, especially when they've dropped 3 other matches, 1 in a dream breaker. So 4 total points for the team ranking of the Columbus Sliders. And we will speak with Riley Newman and Brooke Buckner after the break to see what this win means to get their monkey off their back.